Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, January 24th, 2018. My name is Michael Brooks on a hybrid Michael and Sam Majority Report Wednesday. We are broadcasting live, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We're broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On today's program, The Intercept's James Risen on his time at the New York Times dealing with the Obama administration, the Bush administration, potentially unofficial censorship, covering the war on terror, decision-makings by the editorial of the New York Times. It's pretty disturbing blockbuster stuff on covering that world and U.S. foreign policy and the New York Times relationship to it. Brand new interview Sam just recorded. And Donald Trump has a request for the next 3 weeks. Keep him the hell away from Chuck Schumer. Total bad guy. Remember that report on how border agents were pouring out bottles of water that were placed there to help people crossing the border not die of thirst or get severely dehydrated, and they poured it out? Well, the activists that exposed that little crime against humanity, they've been arrested. We'll get to that. Donald Trump is defending the quote-unquote America First agenda before heading to Davos, where the globe's elite are meeting. And gunmen storm a Save the Children aid office in Afghanistan. I think ISIS has taken credit for this. More than half of America sees Trump as biased against black people. Where did that come from? That's totally unfair. I'm the least racist person who's ever been polled on how racist they are. And there's been a school shooting in Kentucky, making it the nation's 11th of the year. And we're only into the 24th day of the first month. All that and much, much more on today's Majority Report. Let's start. We've been talking about the Democratic cave. They failed on both metrics. Not strategic, not ruthless, not effective, and of course, with no sort of moral urgency for saving dreamers and the broader sort of case for the human rights of immigrants. This clip, where actually Rachel Maddow is asking him some decent questions, and we're going to just see the just sort of, I mean, watching Chuck Schumer lay out what the play is here, like Ezra Klein's failed spin on this, or just sort of dorkish reading of it, is a lot more convincing in bullet point form than actually watching Chuck Schumer present this. I mean, this is just embarrassing. Far better to say, look, we're not shutting the government down. This isn't happening right now. We're going to save it for a future battle. We're going to get chipped. Don't even worry about it. We don't have the votes. To go through this exercise, cave immediately, expose your weaknesses and lack of cohesion, and then basically come out with like a, we have a chip from Mitch McConnell is, I mean, wow. I think, in fact, I mean, it's quite clear to me that, again, regardless of policy stances, Harry Reid was a lot more effective at this job in both minority and majority than Chuck Schumer. Here he is, just as Democrats put this together.
If they don't do it by March 5th, the awful, awful, awful pictures of dreamers being deported, I think will rally the nation and the House will be forced to do it.
Pause.
So this was what we thought.
I'm sorry. The House of Representatives dominated by Republicans in districts with virulent anti-immigrant sentiment will be forced to do it because there will be protests in Washington because of, quote, mainstream, lamestream media coverage of people being deported. Now, we've already got families being, exposing the travesty of this administration's immigration policies on The View. And you couldn't even stay through a shutdown. And now you think that the Republican House is going to be forced to back down on this? I mean, look, there's a fine line between willing things into reality and just being delusional, sounding like you're huffing glue outside of Penn Station. And I think we know where Chuck Schumer is in this part of it.
Was the best shot we had. You know, when Trump shut the government down and we wouldn't go along, it's the first time Democrats did it, and we did it for Dreamers because we care. But we have to use the few tools we have to get the best result.
On Sunday night, you turned down the chance to vote for the CR, the funding of the government, without the things that you were standing up for, with the kind of strategy that you're describing here. But then the following day, yesterday, you took that same deal that you had turned down the night before. Now, I hear what you're saying in terms of what power that you had, but that can't have been the plan, to stand up for it for a few days and then ultimately vote for what you previously said no to.
Rachel, we didn't have the offer until late Sunday night. Susan Collins, who's been a very good person on this, came to my office. I said, the promise McConnell made, the vague promise as of Sunday, isn't enough. We need him to commit that A, we would get a vote on a clean bill, B, that it would be a vote that of a bill that I okayed, so it couldn't be a fake bill or a bill filled with lots of poison pills, and that it would come to the floor at a specific time, the week of February 8th. Is there a guarantee that McConnell keeps his word? No, but we're going to hold his feet to the fire, and everyone in your audience who cares about Dreamers should focus on McConnell. That's what we all agreed to today. We had a very good meeting. There was a lot of upsetness in the room, of course, not at us really, but because the Dreamers haven't gotten what they need and the time is ticking. But everyone agreed that the focus should be on McConnell and the Republican senators. Democrats are all for Dreamers. And to get in a circular firing squad and shoot at Democrats when we don't have the power and we have to use the limited power we have in as strategic a way as we can, that's what makes sense, focusing on the Republicans.
Yeah, the trouble is that you weren't strategic. And the trouble is that everybody who negotiated this deal clearly does not support the Dreamers 100%. They caved, they undermined your authority, and stripped away both your strategy and exposed your weaknesses. Now, at the same time that interview was taking place, there was actually audio found of a meeting going on in Mitch McConnell's office. And it went something like this. Hey guys, Chuck Schumer is going to threaten me. He's going to hold my feet to the fire. Ooh.
Nice
I'm terrified, absolutely. Whoa, feeling a little heat down there. That's as hot as a opium pipe in one of my in-laws' dens in Taiwan.
Take my slippers off.
Yeah.
I don't know. I heard that he did a pinky promise with no takebacks this time, which, as we all know, is legally binding.
He's got me dead to rights.
Yeah, yep, got me dead to rights. Yep, crossed my toes. The old loophole. I wrote not in the margins of our written agreement. Jesus.
Dope.
Yeah, right. So, Rachel, there was only so much we could do. Don't criticize us. Certainly don't think about why you have a totally sclerotic leadership with no new lifeblood in it for generations doing the same failed strategy. You wouldn't want to do that. Fire Ron McConnell. Focus on him. And look, absolutely. Call Republican senators. I'm not even going to say shame them. They're completely beyond shame. But of course, the heat and the energy of politics should be primarily focused on the Republican Party. They run everything. But we can't just have cohesion with Democrats if, setting aside serious policy differences, they don't even know what they're doing. Each new year, 30% of people make the resolution to be more financially responsible. Most of these people don't follow through. Being responsible is hard. Matt.
Agreed.
Policy Genius is an easy way to compare and buy life insurance online. They let you compare quotes in just 5 minutes. It's almost unheard of to make a responsible purchase in 5 minutes. Policy Genius has helped over 4 million people shop for insurance, and they've placed over $20 billion in coverage. And they don't just insure life. They insure everything in it. You can compare health insurance, disability insurance, pet insurance, renter's insurance. So many ways to be responsible. So if you made your New Year's resolution to be better with money, achieve it at policygenius.com. It's an easy way to compare life insurance, to buy life insurance. It's an easy way to compare and buy life insurance. There's zero sales pressure and no hassle. And it's free. It's free is the most financially responsible price. Policy Genius. Get your New Year's resolution resolved in 5 minutes. Policygenius.com. We're going to go. This is an interview that Sam recorded a few days ago with James Risen. And we will get to it in about 30 seconds, and then we'll be back on the flip side.
We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. On the phone, James Risen, the Pulitzer Prize winning now with the senior national security correspondent at The Intercept, also author of numerous best-selling books, including State of War, The Secret History of the CIA and the Bush Administration, which in some respects, your piece in The Intercept, My Life as a New York Times Reporter in the Shadow of War on Terror, is almost in some ways a backstory of the reporting that went into State of War. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So, I mean, let's start with I guess the one of those things that one of the stories that was in State of War, which ultimately was published in the New York Times. But let's start with the discovery of stellar wind. Tell folks, remind folks what stellar wind is, and how you began to report on it.
Yeah, stellar wind is the code name for the NSA's domestic spying program that began after 9/11 and which continues today. It's the same program. It's the same broad program that Edward Snowden released documents about, and it's kind of the umbrella term for very broad-based surveillance of both metadata, which means phone call logs and email addresses, and content. Voice communications on phone or communications or the actual substance of emails and other data. And, that program, as I said, began right after 9/11 and was secret. Its existence was the biggest, what a lot of people thought was the biggest secret in the government. And in 2004, I was covering the intelligence community for the New York Times, and a source, in the course of a conversation, a source told me, I know the biggest secret in the government, but I'm too afraid to tell you. And I decided to just keep meeting with that person over the next few months, and the two of us began to just talk about how this thing that was the biggest secret that the source couldn't tell me. And finally, in late summer, I guess it was, of 2004, I just said to the source, "You've got to tell me now. What is this that we keep talking about?" And then the source, kind of told me over a short period of time, outlined the whole structure of this domestic spying operation that nobody knew it existed. And that was the beginning of my reporting on it, and then it led to this very, very long negotiations between the New York Times and the government over whether to publish the story.
And I want to talk about obviously those negotiations, and in some ways they led to the outcome of those negotiations led to the state of war, the book.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this: like, what? I mean, I presume, and tell me if I'm wrong, that your source shared this information with you because of their concern of the legality of this.
Yeah, there were a lot of. It turned out we found other people subsequently to talk to about it, and they were all very. They believed that it was either illegal or unconstitutional, and that it was being done secretly and without. Only a handful of people in the government knew, and most people in Congress were kept in the dark about it. And it was the key to the story was that they were skirting the law. They were going around the secret court that had been set up to handle, national security wiretaps and surveillance.
This is the FISA court.
The FISA court.
Established
the FISA
under
court.
the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act.
Surveillance Act.
That I guess came out of in the 70s. That came out of
yes.
The I think it was the Church Commission.
Right.
And so how many,
and so there was
how many people did you have a sense of how many people knew this? I mean, as you started to do the reporting to get sort of confirmation from other sources, did you have a sense of how many people knew this secret, and how many of them were concerned about its legality or constitutionality, and what differentiated them from those who would order it?
Well, over time, we came to realize that a lot of people in the government knew about it, and the very highest reaches of the government. And it turned out much later, found out that there'd been a rebellion at the Justice Department and the FBI over certain aspects of the program, and all of this was being kept secret, and to make sure that the Bush administration didn't suffer any political damage from it. And we eventually found out that one reason they were keeping it secret was that there were people at the highest reaches of the Bush administration who were afraid of being prosecuted if it all came out. So, it was a real conspiracy of silence.
And that extended in one fashion or another to the New York Times leadership. We explained at what point did you go to the Times and say, "Hey, I have a big story here," and tell us what happened at that point?
Well, when you have a good story, you kind of tell editors pretty much immediately that you think you have a good story. Even if it's not ready to go. And so, all along I had been telling editors, there's something here that I think might be big. And but the real, and then I started working with another reporter in the Washington bureau on it, who was sitting next to me, and we realized that we were both hearing about the same thing from different people. And we started working together on a draft of a story, and then I think it was in the fall of 2004, I decided to call the NSA and kind of confront them and go through the front door to confront them. And I got Mike Hayden, the NSA director, on the phone and kind of read him the first couple drafts of a draft of a story. And he just gasped audibly and then, said, "Oh, whatever we're doing is legal and effective and, is operationally effective." And then he got off the phone. And before long, he called the Washington bureau chief of the New York Times. And that kind of began a very long process of negotiations.
And presumably, where were you in the reporting at that point? I mean, did you feel like we've gone as far as we can go? Did you feel at that time, did you have a sense from your editors at the Times that, okay, this is about, we're going to run with this story? Because we're now talking, we're just before the 2004 election between Kerry and Bush, and this would have been rather important information to know when you go to the voting booth, or theoretically, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, after that, we were still doing more reporting, and then but by even after that phone call with Hayden, we kept doing more reporting and more writing and everything. And but by the time we met with we went to New York to meet with the executive editor, Bill Keller, to decide whether to publish it. A week or two before the election. And by that time, Eric Lischblau, the other reporter, and I, and our editor, Rebecca Corbett, believed we should publish the story. And Keller disagreed and decided not to publish it before the election. And based, on the position of the government, which was, they were lobbying the paper very heavily not to publish it on national security grounds. And so I disagreed with that decision, and I argued in favor of publication, but Keller decided not to.
How would you characterize Keller's position? Was it that we're getting too much pressure from the United States, or had he from the government, or had he bought in this is too dangerous? We're going to expose the United States to, it's too dangerous. We may be exposing the country to a terrorist attack. I mean, in other words, what was your sense of his reasoning?
Well, I knew what the government was arguing. Government officials. I had met some of them, and we had a meeting right after I called Hayden. The Washington Bureau Chief Phil Taubman and I went to the White House and met with the acting CIA director and his chief of staff. And so I heard their arguments, which were, that their basic argument was, this is the most important counterterrorism tool that we have. And you can't reveal the existence of this to the public because it'll make it easier for terrorists to attack the United States. And so that was the basic argument. And my position was that terrorists know that the United States listens to their their conversations. And the only thing we were really revealing was that the Bush administration had decided to ignore the law in the way in which they did that. And so I felt like there was a real public right to know that the government was ignoring the law. And so that it was a classic national security versus civil liberties debate. That was those are the two opposing positions basically.
And was it just simply that Keller agreed, this is clearly this puts the country too much at risk, or was it
I think he accepted the government's position at that time that this was too valuable a counterterrorism tool, and I think that was the basic view, and it took time over the next. We then, after the election, Eric Lischblau and I convinced the editors to let us try again to convince them to publish it, and we did more reporting and more writing, and we then met again with the editors in December 2004, about a month and a half after the election. And again, they decided not to run it, and they decided to kill it, and they still accepted the government's position that it would be too damaging to national security to run it. And I just really disagreed with that decision.
As a reporter in that situation, do you then say, okay, how about this? How about we don't write what it is? We write, there's a program that's going on that many people have questions as to it being constitutional or legal. Like, I mean, is that a negotiation that you start to make? I mean, is that
sometimes you can do that?
Is that a ridiculous idea? I mean, I don't know. Like, that's why
Right.
Is that silly? Like,
no, it's an interesting question. It's an interesting question. There's a lot of stories that are where you negotiate with the government over specific details, in which you agree to take out a certain detail in a story, and I've done that over the years. This was, I never saw how I don't think you could have done that in this case.
Okay.
Because the whole story was about the existence of this program, and the very existence of the program was the thing they didn't want anybody to know about. It wasn't like some detail they didn't want anybody to know about. And that was, so I think it made it different. But you're right, there are certain stories where a lot of times the news organizations will negotiate, "Well, take this out and we'll be okay." But I don't think it was possible in this case.
And all right, so ultimately, you decide at one point that I'm going to put this in a book because the Times is not going to report it, and that ends up basically forcing their hand. Just walk us through that.
Right. Yeah, well, the backstory to that is that this was like over the previous couple of years, I've had a whole bunch of other stories killed by the paper on the same grounds, where the government would say, this, if you run this story, it'll harm national security. So by the time this case happened, I'd heard their arguments about a whole number of stories, and so to me, they were just crying wolf constantly, and so I just decided I wasn't being allowed to cover the war on terror the way I thought it should be covered, and so I decided to write a book and include this story and another story that had been killed by the editors, and some other things that I had learned. And so I just decided to put it in a book. And then after I wrote the manuscript and had it, and my publisher had mostly edited it, I told the Times, I'm putting these in my book. You should run the stories. And that led to a whole series of very tense meetings between me and the editors.
I would imagine that they felt like, it's sort of, what strikes me about that is like, what happened to their concerns? Obviously they still had some, but the idea that they would get scooped by their own reporter seems to have outweighed their, the concerns that had kept the story out of print for all those years.
Well, actually, what they did was they told me we will reconsider running it, but they wouldn't commit to running the story, the NSA story, even though I told them it was going to be in my book. They just said, I think the way they phrased it was, we will agree to reconsider it and we will reopen negotiations with the government, but if we decide at the end of that process that we still don't think we should run it, we want you to take it out of your book. And that was as far as I could push them. And I said, okay, fine, but I never intended to take it out of my book. And it was too late to do that anyway, so it meant that I was playing a really serious game of chicken with them as they reopened negotiations with the government and decided whether they would publish the story. And my book, the publication date was kind of bearing down. So it was a very incredibly stressful time for me.
I would imagine. And we should say, and the other story, or at least one of the major stories that was in State of War, was a story that you had reported about a CIA plan to disrupt the Iranian nuclear program by basically. Why don't you tell the story of this? Because this is relevant in about 3 or 4 different ways to where we are today.
I found out about this story about a year before I found out about the NSA story, and it was basically the CIA had a botched operation, very poorly managed operation, to get a Russian to hand over nuclear blueprints to the Iranians. And these blueprints were supposedly had flaws embedded in them to make sure that, if the Iranians built a nuclear weapon from this, it would be a dud. But the flaws had been put in such a way that they were obvious to and so the Russian was very afraid, I think, and sent a letter to the Iranians when he handed over the blueprint that you will see that there are problems with these blueprints. And so this whole idea that they were trying to fool the Iranians kind of got botched. And so I wrote about this harebrained program and wrote a story, and I called the CIA for comment in 2003. And Condoleezza Rice called the Washington bureau chief and demanded that we meet. And I went over to the White House with the bureau chief, and Condoleezza Rice was there along with George Tenet, the CIA director. And Condoleezza Rice stared at me and said, "I want you to destroy your notes, never make another phone call on this story, and forget that you know anything about this." And so, we left that meeting. It was kind of intimidating, but it was also great confirmation of the story.
Right.
And
weird
so
authority. I mean, under what authority does someone say that to a reporter?
No authority whatsoever. So anyway, that the story had been killed after that by the Times because the White House, claimed it would damage national security. And then there had been other stories they'd killed for national security grounds too. And so by the time the NSA thing happened, I felt like I was fed up, and I just felt like I wouldn't respect myself if I kept going along with this stuff.
What's the argument that the story about the I guess that was Operation Merlin was the attempt to send bad plans? What's the argument that revelation is going to hurt national security?
Well, they argued that I was wrong when I said that the program was mismanaged. They thought, oh yes, this has been perfectly managed, and we've completely fooled the Iranians. And so that was their basic argument. But in fact, several people at the CIA knew that this operation was either a dud or mismanaged. And it was pretty widely known within the agency that this had not worked. But, they don't want to admit things like that.
Well, that seems to be the sort of, that seems to be the big theme with this, right? It's not.
Well, that's what I've learned. That's what the thing I've learned about this whole process of when the government tries to crack down on the press and try to stop the publication of stories. It's almost always just to avoid embarrassment. And yet they use the national security card as a way to convince editors, to put the fear of God into editors,
That's whether it's I guess there was that Thomas Drake thing with Trailblazer. It always seems to be covering up incompetence. Is
or something that's illegal.
Right.
So,
which is,
I think one of the things I've told people is I think you go back through history, I don't think you can find a single newspaper story that has ever really damaged national security of the United States. And I think that's what nobody wants to admit, is that the government always makes these claims, and yet there's no proof that national security has ever been harmed by the press.
And in fact, you were, you were fully prosecuted, but you were more or less, I guess, prosecuted in some regard, or under threat of prosecution, not just in the Bush during the Bush administration, specifically because of that Operation Merlin story, but ultimately with the Obama administration. Tell me about that time when you thought, okay, all right, Bush is out of here in, X number of months. So if I can just hang in there until then, I'm surely this is going to end.
Right.
When did you
Right.
realize that was not going to be the case? And tell us about that, because ultimately your source, Jeffrey Sterling, ended up being convicted of violating the Espionage Act.
Well, it's not. I can't discuss whether or not he was a source or not.
Okay. Well,
I'm never going to comment on who was or was not a source for that story.
All right. Fair enough.
What I can say is that in 2008, I was subpoenaed by the Justice Department as part of a leak investigation into my book, State of War. And they focused on the chapter that included the story of Merlin, which the New York Times had never run. And then I fought the subpoena. And as you said, since it began in 2008, I thought, if we can just hang on for a few months, there's an election coming up, and it looked like Obama might win. And so I was hoping that the whole thing would go away. And then the judge in my case kind of let it rolled it, I think, for the same reason. And then June or July of 2009, after Obama had won, she issued a brief statement saying, well, I see that in this case the grand jury has expired, and that means that the subpoena of Mr. Risen is moot, and I give the government 10 days to decide whether to drop this subpoena or not. And I thought, okay, that was like an open invitation to the Obama administration from a judge to forget about this case and to drop it. And instead, the Justice Department under Obama said, no, we want to continue this case. And we want to, in fact, they said, we want to use the same subpoena that the Bush administration used. And she said, no, you got to get a new subpoena because you have a new attorney general. And so they said, okay. And Eric Holder then issued a new subpoena and started the case, kept the case going, and became even more aggressive. And when she quashed that subpoena that Holder had issued, they issued another one for the trial to force me to testify. And then she quashed that subpoena, and then they appealed her decision to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in arguing that there was the basic argument that they made, which turned this case into a major constitutional showdown, was that there is no such thing as a reporter's privilege in a criminal case. Which means, and they spelled this out, a reporter has no more right than any other citizen to avoid testifying. And a reporter has an obligation to testify and reveal sources in any case in which we subpoena them. So they were essentially saying the Obama administration's position was that reporters have no right to protect their sources. And it was shocking to me. And unfortunately, most of the press at that time ignored the case because, hey, well, we can't attack Obama on press freedom. It was like he skated by for a long time until the case went to the Supreme Court. And then the Supreme Court refused to hear my appeal of their ruling in the Fourth Circuit, which the Fourth Circuit sided with the Obama administration. And so the ruling stood, which was reporters like Risen have no rights to protect their sources. And so the only thing I had left was to go to jail or reveal my sources. And so finally, the fact that this went to the Supreme Court started to get more media attention to the case. And that, the one thing I learned about Eric Holder is that he cares about publicity. So he was starting to get bad publicity, so the Obama people started backing off. And at the very end, when I had to go to one pretrial hearing where they asked me, will you reveal your sources? And I said no. And then they dropped the case, dropped the subpoena against me. And so in the end, they blinked, but they took it so far down the road that the legal legacy of the Obama administration is this Fourth Circuit ruling, which says reporters have no rights to protect their sources. And that still stands today. And the Fourth Circuit covers Virginia and Maryland, which is home to the CIA, the NSA, and the Pentagon, and which means that every major leak investigation is now covered by a ruling that says you don't have any rights to protect your sources. And so that is something that Donald Trump, I'm sure, will have a field day with.
What do you think? I mean, the Obama administration prosecuted more whistleblowers under the Espionage Act than I think had been done maybe in history combined.
It's more than all previous administrations.
What do you think? I mean, do you have a sense? I mean, there's no reason why you necessarily would, but I'm curious if you have a sense of why. Like, why were, I mean, certainly the expectation that you had, that the judge had, that frankly, if you had asked me, would have had at that time was like, yeah, no, this is not going to be, the Obama administration's not going to be known for being the most aggressive against whistleblowers. No way. Why do you think they were? I mean, what was that?
I have struggled with that question for years, and I don't have. I mean, I can give you what I think happened,
sure.
But obviously they didn't tell me. I was like the last person they would talk to about this. But I think it was several factors, and I think probably the most important one was they were afraid of. On national security issues, I think Obama was deeply afraid of right-wing attacks on all national security issues. And I think he saw himself as, his biggest priority, it seemed to me, as domestic issues, the economy, healthcare, other issues. And that on national security issues in general, he tended to extend and keep in place most of the policies of the Bush administration. And people don't want to admit that, but that's true. I mean, the one thing he gets credit for was ending the war in Iraq, which he ended it at the same time that the Bush administration planned to end it. And all he did was follow through with the Status of Forces agreement that the Bush administration had done. And so I think it was part of a larger view of national security policies, which were let's do national security policies in a way that makes it difficult for the right wing to attack us. And I think leak investigations fit into that. And I also think there was also a sense that Obama was never quite as liberal as people thought he was.
Right.
And I think there was a personal I think on a personal level, he doesn't like the press very much. And then I also think, probably the technology had made it easier to do these kind of leak investigations. And so, you could track people and also I think the biggest, probably another factor was you had these mass leaks under Obama. You had WikiLeaks and Edward Snowden. And I think those had a traumatic effect inside the government, and made them gave them more of a zero tolerance policy. But none of that excuses the way they dealt with this, because it was anti-democratic and a real and very damaging to press freedom. And I don't think they ever understood what it meant for reporting in America.
Right. The sort of the scarring effect that it would have down the road. I mean, my sense is, well, and I, we've on this program talked quite a bit and we had multiple conversations with Charlie Savage about this over the years, and sort of the Obama administration's legacy of bringing these programs like this into some type of legal framework, as opposed to, right. And I think
that's the Charlie and I worked together for a long time, and we discussed this between ourselves a lot. And one of the things that Charlie, I think, makes very smart point in his last book was about that the Obama administration saw their primary role as bringing Congress and the courts into agreement with the executive on counterterrorism policy.
Yes.
And that was the main difference between them and the Bush administration, which is I think he's right. I think that's how they look at it, but that doesn't change the substance of what they were doing.
No, in fact, right? In some ways, it makes the substance. I mean, from the perspective of civil liberties, it makes the substance even worse, because now right. These things are edified and have wormed their way into our the construction of our or the fabric of our government. And there's no
right, exactly.
There's not the same opportunity. There's no recourse here to sort of like reconsider these things, or in the same
right.
right. manner, anyways.
Right. No, that's right. That's right. No, I think leak investigations was all part of that. I think they, if you look back, the Obama administration is very secretive and very anti-transparency efforts. And, they went out of their way on a whole range of issues, like Guantanamo, for instance, to, accept the most constrained view of the role of, public dissemination of information.
Do you, in your, in just, I guess, lastly, like, is Trump having sort of the opposite effect? Like, as you do your job now, is Trump not on purpose, but is he unwinding it? Because I think to a certain extent there was like, okay, Obama, we can trust him with this stuff. And that's why I think like the reaction to your case took so long, because people, it just didn't fit with the narrative. And I think you're right. that the national security state sort of was freaking out about the advances in technology. And I have a feeling that the Obama administration was not only naturally inclined to respond to them, but felt, that it was politically in their best interest to get out in front, like, oh, we're going to even be more, as you want us than you even imagine how you want us, to get out in front of that. But I wonder, is there some type of like backlash under Trump? Are there people who are more almost skittish? I mean, we didn't see it in Congress the other day when it came to 702 reauthorization.
No, that's the weird thing. You would think you might be seeing that, but politically you haven't. I think there's people in the government who are deeply afraid of Trump, but that's one of the surprising things to me is how little open rebellion you're seeing within the Democratic caucus in towards giving, finding some ways to limit Trump's executive powers. They haven't done it at all about anything.
There didn't seem to be any inclination to do that. I mean, I wonder is in your reporting and just in the course of doing your job, are you seeing a greater sensitivity? Because there seems to be none politically in that sense.
Right.
But I'm wondering if
Right.
you're seeing it bureaucratically. Are there people who are questioning internally more than they would have, let's say, under the Obama administration?
Yeah, I think so. But I also think that the crackdown on leaks makes it so a lot of people are very afraid of talking. So it's difficult, and I think there's both a fear of Trump and a fear of leak investigations. And so that's those two things kind of paralyze people, I think, right now.
And lastly, and I promise this is lastly, but and maybe you don't know. I mean, this stuff is fascinating, and your story is really amazing. I mean, just broadly speaking, over the past 10 more years now, I guess. But do you think that there were any lessons learned by? Maybe it's Keller's obviously gone, but do you think institutionally, the New York Times or the press at large has changed in any way? I mean, was there any lessons learned that, like, hey, wait a second, we keep seeing this over and over again, where it turns out, like, no, not really about national security, more like people didn't want to get caught screwing up,
right,
in one fashion or another.
Right.
Do you think there's a greater understanding of that, or no?
I think within the New York Times, I think the fight over the NSA story did have an effect, and I think it helped. I think it was one factor that's helped usher in a new era at the paper, where they're much more aggressive now on national security reporting, at least in some ways, and the paper is much less willing to agree to hold or kill stories than they used to be. I know that for a fact, and so that they're much more skeptical of government arguments to hold or kill stories than they used to be. I think the media writ large on one of the other issues that I talk about in the piece is the debacle of pre-war intelligence on Iraq and WMD reporting and how bad that was. And I don't think the press has learned many lessons from that. I think we still... there's still a lot of hyping of stories on terrorism and WMD, and I think from Iran or wherever, North Korea, and terrorism, the exaggerated threat of terrorism has made it very difficult politically in Washington for any political leaders to think about dismantling this the growing security state that's been built up since 9/11.
James Risen, the piece in the Intercept is My Life as a New York Times Reporter in the Shadow of the War on Terror. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome back, folks. Well, an unchecked national security. I remember when we were arguing about NSA spying, and if you were arguing with some, person who's like, I feel totally comfortable with it because Barack Obama is the greatest human being in the history of the universe, and I think it's okay if we drop drones or anywhere, and I don't have anything to hide. And you'd be like, okay, totally, you're right. We should set aside legal process, privacy concerns, human rights, all of that. Totally agree with you. What happens when, Ted Cruz is you try to think of the most nutty Republican possible, and then you just know, yeah, I mean, what happens when you build this whole completely unchecked secret apparatuses, and you throw the keys to me. And now, resistance Twitter with that. He's a criminal. But no, we've definitely got to keep the NSA program going for sure. Throw him the keys. It's great stuff. It's good stuff. All right, folks, we're going to go to the fun half. 646-257-3920, 646-257-3920. Become a member of the Majority Report today. Majority.fm/become a member. JustCoffee.coop. Get the Majority Report blend. I believe it's 10% off with the coupon code MAJORITY. Majority Report kickback, jet.com. Check out the Michael Brooks Show on iTunes or YouTube or Patreon. Deep dive history of the opioid crisis last night. I'm going to be in LA the next couple of days, so I'll see everybody in either the fun half or on Monday. IMs are on.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back, boys back, and the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you can imagine.
The alpha males are back, boys back, and the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Almost says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
I am a total cunt.
Can we bring back DJ Danerky's song, please?
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danerky.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break for people.
That's fucking nonsense.
Hey, folks, reminder.
I do not have Parkinson's.
And the alpha males are
Psych. Fuck them.
Almost says what? Almost says what?
Hell of a lot of bang. 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 Hell of a lot of bang.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black.
See Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keep it at 100.
Can't knock the hustle.
Come on! Fuck them. Fuck things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday! Happy birthday to me, Jew boy!
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are back. Africans are black.
Come on! Come on! Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
Jesus. Still good. DJ Danerky is a genius. Matt, what happened to your concern troll MLK campus character?
What do you mean? What happened?
I haven't heard it for a while. I'm missing it.
We
just went through the holiday.
He likes to leave him wanting more.
Yeah. Jerry Seinfeld.
I've been very busy.
I can't do a bit anymore.
With Charlie Kirk down in Palm Springs.
Turning Points USA. It's like Gavin McGinnis said.
Socialism sucks.
Socialism's not cool. It's like not the individual and such.
I feel like we should have some cultural theorists on to explain exactly why right-wingers will never be funny or cool.
I saw a tweet about this last night. Yeah, and there's like, if a conservative
comedian wanted to be public, he'd lose his job in like 3 days. And it's like, well, what comedy do you want to do? Let's see some examples of jokes that you
conservatism's naturally not. I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, it's not punching. It punches up or it punches down.
But I don't agree with there's definitely comedy that is not left and not enlightened that is absolutely funny.
I agree with that.
But there is a there's
Dave Chappelle.
That's a stretch.
Let's not go there.
No, I don't mind. I mean, no, it's in some ways it is, but I think I'm thinking of like Howard Stern when he was like not his current iteration is incredibly funny and not
comedy is subversive though, and conservatism is inherently not that.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess what I'm saying is I think like vintage Howard Stern's hilarious, but why but it's not conservative. Like there's no. But I guess by that same token, there isn't like.
I mean, how do you define conservative? That's another thing. Everyone's got a different definition.
Well, I feel like when people bitch about it, when like someone like that says that, they're specifically saying that like I have a comedic persona that like does conservative jokes, and I don't think there has been anybody who has that. Like I think there's plenty of comedy that you could say isn't enlightened or whatever that is funny, but there has not been anybody who's like, I'm the conservative comic. That doesn't exist.
Yeah, totally.
I mean,
that's a funny thing.
I don't agree with Lindy West on everything, but I do agree with the blog post she wrote, I think on Jezebel, talking about how when you make rape jokes at the expense of rape victims, you're a conservative comedian.
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know what I don't read Lindy West at all, so I don't even know what she's defining. Like I don't know what her examples are for that. What little I've read of her, not a big trust in her humor radar. But
I like when Nick Mullen makes fun of her.
What's that?
In his own right.
No. Abort this.
New problematic fave. I haven't listened to that one.
I'm going to pretend you didn't say that.
I haven't listened to that one. I haven't listened to that one enough yet to have an opinion on it. You're calling from a 847 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from? Hello. This is a going once, going twice situation. It's not good. I think that was...
Some good sniffles there, though. Good job.
Good. Thanks for the sniffles. Appreciate that. You're calling from a 321 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
3, 2, 1.
Oh, I hope this isn't the problem, because I don't know what does Sam do? Does he just call back in?
I think so. Yeah.
But that was odd because the first one we were definitely on, and the person just wasn't.
People just.
You're calling from a 321 area code. All right, I'm going to call back in because that was odd. But let's get to our first piece of sound. What do you have? Tommy Lauren. So, Tommy Lauren, I just, it's very hard for me to bring myself to care about Tommy Lauren. Where is she? She got the Fox, right?
Yep, she's at Fox now.
Did she make the move?
She's a contributor.
I think they're pronouncing her name right too. Correct.
What is her? How do you pronounce? Am I pronouncing it wrong?
Tommy Lauren.
Yeah, I always want to say Tommy, and
it's
that's
not Tommy.
Ducey called her that too.
It's Tommy.
Yeah, Tommy.
Okay, Tommy.
It's Lauren. A traditional Dakota name, right, Matt?
Maybe South Dakota.
I love your insistence. Like, what is the actual difference between South and North Dakota? Like, what makes North Dakota basically better? Okay, fair enough. Thank you for your intellectual honesty. Tommy Lauren is on Fox, and I mean, dude, I just don't like. I feel like we've gone downhill. At least like Ann Coulter could put on a little bit of a show, and here she is, and this is vintage Fox News stuff. We're gonna move from some type of basically just football players. They're kneeling. It's the end of the world. Tommy's upset. Take a
not
look.
want to look silly, so they won't talk about it.
You know, fascinating development as the NFL just coming off its biggest ratings, I think, since last year's Super Bowl with the Jaguars game, and the Patriots played them and beat them in the fourth quarter. That played a lot into it. And the NFL back with some controversy. They've rejected, evidently, an AmVets ad that would have emphasized the need to stand for the national anthem, AmVets being American veterans. Their decision, the NFL's decision, this is a celebration of football. What's your reaction to them rejecting that ad?
Isn't it sad that it has now become too political or too controversial to ask Americans to stand for the American flag? That used to be a given. That used to be something that all Americans were proud to do, regardless of political affiliation, race, gender. That used to be a given, and now it's not. And we have the NFL in part to thank for that. And when they say that they don't want this game to be too political, are you kidding me? What have they done for the last 2 seasons? They've bent over backwards for activist groups and spit in the face of patriotic Americans, veterans, and our military. And now they don't want to be too political? Give me a break.
But the Super Bowl is oftentimes one of the most patriotic pre-games ever, with the flyover and the flag, and they usually have the military.
Oh, that's so great. I feel so bad for Brian Kilmeade. He's in a gilded prison and so desperately wants to do more fun journalism and sports, and it's kind of pathetic in his sort of childlike dimwit way. Tomi Lahren, I mean, I just hear verbiage, black people, flag. Like, I don't even understand. I get that the NFL, which has obviously punished Colin Kaepernick as an example in a real
what's this bend over
material
backwards
terms by, destroying his capacity to play, even though he is, not amazing, but absolutely like a solid, mid-tier player who certainly could be on a team. And so, but apparently by not accepting an ad that directly insults their players, they're bending over backwards for them, which is an interesting frame. When she said spit on the face of troops, I had this picture of Kaepernick like spitting a perfect arc. Like Kaepernick's kneeling. He sees a veteran in the stands because, of course, his point about police, murdering people on the streets is obviously about insulting veterans, naturally. He sees a veteran in like the 5th row. And he just, on the knee, and he just spits this perfect arc that lands on the face of the veteran. And a little tear runs down Tomi Lahren's cheek. And programming for Fox is set for the next month.
And some people are saying it's Tammy, so, who knows at
Tammy?
this point.
I don't care. I refuse to learn her name.
You could do the Sam thing and just do the low-key shade every time you say her name wrong on purpose.
Yeah. I refuse to even learn enough to get it wrong. Tammy, Tommy, Tomi, whatever.
I do love
I could care less.
The Tomi Lahren delivery, though, which is like once she's going, she's not going to stop. If she flubs a line or something like that, she's just going to keep talking
that
and
is
eventually
true.
Just like build up this tiny, like angry blonde conservative woman momentum that's like unstoppable.
They're like sort of like a conservative punditry is sort of like a Guitar Hero style. Like you just go from phrase to phrase. Like if you took a
troops spit on face, everybody together, Americans, we were.
Like what does it come to if this and that didn't happen? There's
right.
There's like little phrases that they just chunk together.
But that's another reason why Kilmeade's so great, because he's like so yeah, like there were jets and the game was great, but then the black guys were there and I don't know, like Tomi, what do you think? And she's like, spit on the face, veterans, black people, Negroes, Muslims, black.
Yeah, we could all learn something from her, I think. I was once told by a boss of mine that I should try to be the Tomi Lahren of the left.
I would appreciate if you not try to do that.
Thank you, boss, for thinking I'm hot, I guess, and fuck you for thinking I'm a complete idiot.
Another thing, talking about Kilmeade, he also has a very interesting delivery where, like, he's the
where
kind of guy,
he doesn't deliver.
Like, you imagine every time that
he has an interesting delivery
yeah.
where he's unable to deliver anything.
If he sees like a car crash, he's gonna stand there until like a cop comes so he can do like a play-by-play of what happened, sort of.
He's the guy in the Eddie Murphy sketch. He's like, I seen it. Except in the Kilmeade version, where it's like, I saw it, and then the car came, and then another one, and then it went boom.
Kilmeade.
But you thought the people would be hurt, but they weren't hurt as much. And then the other guy was mad at the other guy.
A sandwich and tell you they made it at the deli.
Like starting about.
Say they put the mozzarella.
The mozzarella was next. I couldn't believe it.
No, dude. As soon as you give him a Sopranos voice, that's too cool.
Well, it's like starting at about 7 or 8, kids stop getting so excited about telling their parents like what they just saw, and Kilmeade never hit that point.
He literally is like, and then they put basil on it, and most places put the basil on last. They put it on first.
That's why he's an author of multiple bestsellers.
That's why he's a historian of the early
of the
Muslim,
Tripoli pirates.
Yeah, the Tripoli pirates.
New York Times bestseller Brian Kilmeade.
Wait, so what? Andrew Jackson and Thomas Jefferson versus Muslim pirates. What do these books have in common, Brian? I don't know.
You know what's awesome is he might not genuinely be able to tell you. Like he would be like, I don't know. They're both like
my co-editor picks a topic.
Yeah, my editor picks it. What are you trying to say? Why are you guys so mean to me? Why won't Jimmy Kimmel hang out with me?
I'd just like to clarify that boss was not Sam.
Oh, I was going to say that was awkward. You should be the Tommy Lauren. That's what I want. On the Majority Report, do you
That's
say?
what we put in the ZipRecruiter.
Yeah, we put in the ZipRecruiter. We said, seeking Tommy Lauren on the left.
Sounds right up our alley.
Yeah. You're calling from an... Sorry, what was that?
That's some Jimmy Dore shit.
You're calling from an 805 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
My name is Brian. I'm calling from Ridgewood, Queens.
Holler. What's up? What's going on, man?
And... Well, so I was at the North Brooklyn DSA meeting last night.
Hey, what do you want, a fucking cookie?
Jamie was at it.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Hello.
No, but I thought I recognized Jamie's voice speaking up somewhere in there during the meeting, which was kind of fun. But I just there was a thing going on. They're doing like a whole tenant organization thing, right? They're trying.
Were you there, Jamie?
I was there. Did
Okay.
Did we talk to each other?
Yeah, my ears were, I guess, correct.
I guess you didn't talk
like,
to each
wait a
other.
minute,
His ears were correct. He knew you were there,
Yeah,
but
no.
did not speak to you.
Oh, okay.
No, it was weird. I don't know. I was just like, hold on a second. I don't know. Anyway, sorry. Fucking creep alert over here.
Say
But
hi next time. It's way less creepy to just say hi.
I don't think any part of this
am-
is creepy until you guys said it was creepy.
I hadn't turned my head, and I was just like, "What? That sounds very familiar." What? It's
Oh, yeah, all right. We're going to
Anyway,
put a
but-
restraining on you, sir.
No worries. No worries. I'm making it even
Jesus.
worse. I'm sorry. I'm a nice, very nice, approachable person.
Yeah,
so.
you guys are just...
Oh,
I was
fantastic.
simply
Well,
trying
then, next time I
to
guess
fix
I'll,
the
say
culture
hi.
in many ways.
We're all comrades. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm completely derailing this.
No, it's fine.
The Daymore drop. Could you hear that drop, sir? Oh, you couldn't hear it?
No, I actually couldn't. What was it?
Can you hear it now? Play it for him now.
No, it's not going through.
We're not playing yet. Don't worry. Okay, you got it.
Housing DSA meeting.
Okay, so housing DSA meeting. You were there on
Yeah.
both a stalking and political mission. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but there's it's basically, I have an organizing question, and I mean, I know there's a ton of resources I could probably look at for this, but when you're doing organizing, like forming a union where like you can actually get in trouble, and like there's stuff where like people can get kicked out of their homes, like for trying to like unionize or organize or whatever. Like, how the hell do you, like, as a, millennial white dude, who moved here to do like comedy and stuff, like, how the hell do I, like, is it even my place to
yes, don't get
try
worried.
to like convince people that
yes. Well, first of all, I mean, I'm not saying the specifics of how you do something, but one of the things I loved, there was this great panel with Adolph Reed, and he got, and he's really one of my sort of prime influences, and he got one of these like very like, again, it's like, of course, and listen to people, be aware of your context, don't bulldoze them with your thoughts and whatever. But someone was giving one of these like laborious, like sort of like, I'm white, blah blah blah. How do I talk to black people? Which is kind of pretty weird framing.
Right, like that.
Right, it's like a very weird. And Adolph Reed was like, well, you go and you open your mouth and you talk, like. So I think that, like, look, man, if you are trying to do serious work in a way that is responsive to people's needs and connected with what's going on. That's what matters, and it's everybody's place to do it because everybody needs to do it. I mean, I don't think we have much time for these sort of endless navel gazing about that stuff.
Well, not for nothing.
Yeah, I get kind of tired of the hand wringing, but
yeah, we got to do it. It's important. People's houses, people's lives, like this is real stuff. So, I mean, I don't know the specifics when people are, you would know better than me if you're doing that organizing work. But I would not, there's no like sort of normal scenario where you couldn't engage in that if you have a, thoughtful, intelligent, aware, sociable, basic skills here. So, yes. Do you have anything else?
I mean, I think the DSA does a pretty good job of walking that line between being aware of our privilege as white gentrifiers or whatever, and also forming a coalition across all working class people. I think we can do both.
No, sorry, I'm interjecting too much. I suck at calling it.
No, dude, stop.
No. You're delightful.
Do you have anything else? I hope we're kind of getting to what you're asking.
That does kind of clear it up. I was talking with my girlfriend after the thing, and she was just like, because she's not like a DSA member. She kind of joins me on these things, and she was kind of having the discussion. It's like, what are these people talking about this stuff for? And I kind of didn't have. I kind of gave her your answer, but I guess it didn't feel like
read Adolf
it's an
Reed.
Interesting conversation.
I would read Adolf Reed.
I think.
And on this specific topic, I would just like to add that the young woman doing the spiel about it, for the most part last night, she was so informed, and she answered this question in part saying that there are very strong tenants' rights laws in New York, and people might think they can be kicked out of their homes for doing this, but they absolutely cannot.
Right.
And a very important part of this work is informing people of their rights.
Yes, 100%.
Sure. And one last thing I have, and then I'll let you guys get on. There's this really good article in Jacobin that came out a couple of days ago called "Under Neoliberalism, You Can Be Your Own Tyrannical Boss," about how
I have that
neoliberalism is just concretely and totally causing just complete neuroses of millennials, and I think it's great, and I think everyone should read it.
No, appreciate the call.
Yeah, it sounds super interesting.
Thank you.
Next time, say hi.
Yeah. Oh, he's gone.
Just make sure you do it well and you do it with passion.
That's why it's organizing.
Oh my god,
dude, you're on fire with the drops today, man. That's. Jesus.
Seconded.
Let's go to. Do you remember how on Monday, I believe, we were talking about this brilliant guy named the Steak Doctor? He was a friend of Sam's, actually. No, I'm just kidding. His name was Willie Deagle, and he was part of like Fox News kind of taps this sort of like New York scumbag network. It sort of seems like some anchor or producer or something goes to some like bad steakhouse in Midtown. And they're like, hey, the proprietor looks like a total scumbag. He probably opposes paying people a higher wage. Why don't we just book him in a morning block and he'll, explain why, like, I don't know, millennials are entitled because they don't want to, like, work while they have pneumonia or something.
They don't think of themselves as servants.
Yeah, they don't think of themselves as servants anymore. And, you get a nice 10 minutes out of it. And he kind of looks like an extra on Goodfellas or something. So we played this brilliant segment, and we played this great segment the other day of Willie Deagle explaining the entitlement mentality, and we were so fascinated by this guy that, in fact, we're contemplating actually taking a trip to, what is it, Uncle Jack's? Yeah. We're contemplating taking a trip to the steakhouse. A couple of people sent me the reviews of his new one that's opened in Astoria. There's a lot of bad Yelp reviews. And he actually now, as a result of the increase in New York City's wages, he now adds, I think, 5% to the bill and calls it like something like a wage increase charge. So and I think he'll get to it. So we found a couple other things about this guy, Deagle, which we're going to get to. But here is another great appearance of them. When did this take place with Maria Bartiromo?
last year.
This is from last year. He's talking with Maria Bartiromo. He's talking about how the the minimum wage is like super unfair, and he also has a very interesting theory about the Cuomo family and its relationship to pizzerias and pasta joints and how it might reflect in their policy making. You guys are going to really want to check this out.
For joining us. First, let's talk about the minimum wage. Yeah. Minimum wage has gone up in 18 states this year. Steaks.
Yeah, I love it. See, I love it already. He's already like, steaks. I got it, Maria. Oh, my God, this broad.
We're having fun.
We're having fun. Good times.
Wage has gone up in 18 states this year. Steaks and states.
That was a good one.
Minimum wage up. Does that hurt business for you? What's the impact?
It's crushed us. So it's not just this year. It's been minimum wage increases the last 3 to 4 years on the restaurant industry. We employ a lot of people. The restaurant hospitality industry takes a lot of people to perform our show. So it's basically crushing us. It's taking our profits, and they're disappearing.
Wow. What are you going to do about it?
Well, I'm thinking about coming up with a set date. I have 2 alternatives. A 5% fair wage fee put on every check and only recommending a 15% gratuity because the front of the house have gotten so many increases and the back of the house hasn't.
So pause it. I'm sorry. So he literally, and I believe, I don't know if I read in the Yelp reviews that there is this 5% wage fee increase. So he did follow through with that. I don't know if he added the don't tip above 15% because all of the people like struggling to make a living in my stupid steakhouses are getting paid way too much. I mean, if you're making like, I don't even know, what is it, like 15 bucks an hour in New York, you are like, I mean, I'm surprised that his wait staff isn't just partying at Cipriani.
You're commuting from a long distance away.
Yeah, you're not commuting from. You're living like in a high rise in Midtown for $12 an hour. You're living large in New York. I mean, how much more money can these people take?
Yeah, the show Friends, that was real.
Yeah,
it's an accurate reflection of what it's like to be a young person in the city.
The only part of Friends that wasn't real was that they all should have had jobs as wait staff at a steakhouse. Yeah, that would have been more on point. All right, go ahead.
Customer could understand it. We're not taking more from them. We're just tipping the guests, the staff less, being that they're getting so many raise increases.
Right. So what you're saying is something's got to give. I mean, if you're going to be forced to pay your employees more because the minimum wage is going up and that's the law, something's got to give. The money's got to come from somewhere, so you'll raise prices somewhere.
Como was never in the restaurant business. Too bad his family didn't come from a pasta or pizzeria business, and he would understand it a a little bit.
Andrew Cuomo's family is in the restaurant
Which
business.
business? Well, then maybe he didn't like the business and he's a hater on it because every move he makes, he's killing us, right? So he's looking to even do away.
This is anti-Italian discrimination.
Literally them to 15 as well. Then you have the Fair Family Leave Act. So much administrative work has been put on the small business today in this city. You need a full-time lawyer, a full-time human resource, payroll companies. You need administration people, fees across the board, all the different services we offer people, Open Table, different apps, Wi-Fi. It's all costing money.
Of course.
The credit card processing fees are up to 3.5 on the reward cards.
Having said that, how are things going, Willie?
Well, the restaurant business,
better?
we're busy.
Okay,
we're busy.
So you're busy.
We're serving people. The American Grill, the meat house concept. I reinvented this steakhouse so you could come get your meat on.
Oh my God. It's the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
I mean, it seems he could still afford to get his tips frosted, so I think he's probably doing fine.
He's trying to subsidize the Wi-Fi. Yeah, I
like it when he goes after Cuomo and Italians, like talking about pizzeria and pasta joints, and Maria Bartiromo's like, "You're talking to an Italian American here."
Maria Bartiromo's like, the Cuomo family is in the restaurant business. He goes, I don't know, maybe they're haters.
Money's got to come from somewhere.
So if you had already thought to yourself, hey, this guy seems like a sort of like extra in The Sopranos who maybe Tony hugs in one scene and then kicks out of the bada bing later, you're onto something. Because in the course of our research, it appears that, and this is from a 1996 New York Times article, a Mr. William Deagle, later to be known as the steak doctor and a foremost expert for all Fox News properties, apparently, on why we can't pay people any type of remotely living wage. in the most unequal era in human history and in the wealthiest city in arguably the planet. This guy was involved in an altercation at a White Castle restaurant in Bayside, Queens. Mr. Deagle and a friend, Mr. Offen, were approached by police officers because they were harassing staff at a White Castle in Queens. Now, his friend, Mr. Offen, actually attacked the police officer and hit the man repeatedly in the face, causing a series of injuries that required several serious injuries and required surgery and several months to heal. Later on, Mr. Deagle would be charged with 3 other men in a credit card fraud ring. During the federal investigation of that case, court records showed investigators were trying to convince Mr. Offen to testify against the defendants, including Mr. Deagle. Those same records show that in a taped conversation, Secret Service agents threatened to charge Mr. Offen in the case he did not cooperate against the other defendants. But I believe it was Mr. Deagle that ended up actually testifying, right? This is on his, now this is not from the Times article. This is on Wikipedia. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, but released after 6 months after a plea deal. His witness testimony against his co-conspirators helped the government prosecution, leading to the incarceration of Gambino crime family mobster Louis Ferrante. And in 2005, he was named one of Crane's 40 entrepreneurs.
That's a good way to follow that up.
In New York City. Louis Ferrante went to prison and is apparently reformed now and wrote a romance novel about the antebellum South.
I'm sure it's super woke.
I'm sure it's just not only woke, but also incredibly well written. So Mr. Deagle. So basically, to just sort of sum up,
he's a Renaissance man.
This guy, Willie Deagle, who is like the go-to for Fox's explanation of why people who work some of the most thankless jobs in the country and can barely survive even with these increases shouldn't get anything, because he's a scumbag restaurateur who has added a charge onto his customers precisely because he has to pay marginally more money to people who work these jobs under him. He's talking openly about encouraging lower tips on his employees. And he has a background in harassing people at a Bayside, Queens White Castle, which is literally the most scumbag thing I've ever read in print, and was involved in a credit card ring. And apparently connected to a former Gambino family mobster. And this is who killed me. It's like, yeah, they're killing you. And Brian and Bartiromo is also like one of Trump's favorite anchors. So if you ever watched like Goodfellas and you thought like, I would really like these people minus a couple of just like actual acts of violence to just be in charge of everything in my media and political life, nailed it. It's here.
By the way, Trump's a fan of this.
I'm sure Trump is a fan of Willie Deagle.
You mean he likes to get his meat on?
He likes to. I love to get my meat on. That's a great point. Trump visits Uncle Jack's Steakhouse. This is from a piece in the New Yorker. I don't remember. Every morning, Willie Deagle, the proprietor of Uncle Jack's Steakhouse on West 56th Street, less than an avenue away from Trump Tower, has a blunt conversation with his mirror. Do we have the video of this? Where he's psyching himself up in the mirror? What?
There's one that's direct to camera.
All right, I think we're going to just play this to finish our journey with Willie Deagle. So this is how Willie Deagle, the steak doctor, pumps himself up to start his day. Everybody in the office actually has started this routine as well. What is it?
Everybody's passing all these labor increases.
Oh, this is another one?
So they're forcing minimum wage to go from $7.50 to $15 over a 5-year period. Then they're taking the front of the house wait staff, which is 75%
okay, so this is
of my employee base, and took them from $5 to $7.50, and then moving them to $10.
So that means 75% of my employees towards the Hippocratic
in a 5-year period of time
is
getting a 100% increase in labor.
Look at this
well,
place.
where does that come from? How can anyone afford that in any business? And what?
You think that you're entitled to your credit card number and for me to not copy it and use it in a scam with the Gambino family because it's an entitlement society. All right, here's how the steak doctor works himself up in the morning.
Steakhouse, New York's toughest steakhouse boss there is. I used to wake up and look in the mirror and say, who's the man? And I say, I'm the man. Now this is me talking back to myself in the mirror. Now you say, no, who's the man? And at the third time I say, I'm the f***ing man.
Yes.
Who's the man? I'm the man.
Yes.
By the time I was getting in my car, I'm like, I'm the f***ing man.
Yes.
I'm taking on shit. What are we getting done? I want to accomplish everything. I'm going to win, 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 win. I want the best all the time. I want to get better. I need to build more restaurants. I need to build my empire. One customer, one steak, one martini at a time. Every item has to be the freshest, the best money can buy. We serve $200 steaks here all day, lunch and dinner, like it was nothing. Trump comes there, he's a regular. Yeah. What do my employees think about me? I really don't know. You can talk to any one of them anytime you want. They're able to say whatever they really truly feel, man.
I have some really good stories about Willie, but I really can't repeat them on camera, unfortunately.
I don't want to say anything about Willie. Que no lo quiero decir nada más porque tengo miedo que me va a correr.
24-hour surveillance at all times in all of his restaurants.
Willie can see.
Wow. Okay, so yeah.
So somebody added that.
We don't know that, but
yeah, we don't know.
So.
Yeah, it appears like that was an add-on sort of joke. But
wow.
So basically, just to reiterate, when business owners go on TV, they're not sending their best. They're sending people that used to be involved in the Gambino family. They're sending people who constantly bitch about or ratting on them, who constantly complain about their employees making any money. They're not good people. I'm sure some of them are nice, but when they go on TV, not sending their best. Even Trump saw that clip and was like, calm down, Willie.
Can we go back to his interaction with the police for a second? Because I read the Adolph Reed article about how it's not enough. It's not going to be enough to simply have an equally proportionate number of white people and black people be murdered by the cops. And I agree with that. The cops shouldn't murder anyone. And yet, this vignette in Willie Deagle's life.
Careful.
It makes me question.
Careful.
I just don't know anymore.
I think it is. I would definitely say whoever the black analog is to this guy could not have the same yeah, man, I'm just harassing somebody at a White Castle. Now my friend's going to knock your fucking face out.
I mean, up until now, he's escaped poetic justice, criminal. Well, not entirely, but a lot of different strains of justice.
There's a lot of justice that Willie's evaded.
Yeah.
Just in case, Willie Deagle is still involved with certain people.
Yeah.
This is a message to Willie.
That's Wikipedia.
I think you're great.
I would like.
I'd love to do some business with you sometime.
I'd like some coupons.
I don't want to do business with you, but I will go to the steakhouse, and I would just like to say in advance.
Kill Michael is what I'm saying.
Yeah, Brendan's a lot easier to kill, just even in terms of body disposal. But
I'm faster though.
Brendan is jacked.
I don't know. You're faster. I don't know about that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see when Deagle's goons are on. Just kill Matt. He's playing video games and choking on bongs, researching what a tool you are.
I'm a treadmill guy.
Yeah. But he's the reason that we even know this stuff, Willie. And Jamie doesn't respect Stern. Kill her. Howard's the king of all video. Baba booey, baba booey. You're calling from an 823. That's just an unbelievable... You know what? What's messed up is that it's actually cool. The guy got his life together. He's got restaurants like that. That's actually great. But you really want to go on TV and be one of America's chief scumbag cheerleaders against, a marginal wage increase for your workers.
When you have a
just
documented
even in terms of your
history,
own work culture.
When you have a documented history of already harassing restaurant employees going back to the 90s.
This guy was at a White Castle in Bayside. He's what if I own the place? Then I couldn't get kicked out if I harassed them.
It's like Wyatt Koch, In the end, he's only going to help us to wage this class war and convince people that these people need to go.
That's exactly right. So similar to Wyatt Koch, Willie, keep doing what you're doing, brother. You're calling in terms of going on TV. You're calling from a 832 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from? And actually, wait, pause. Just, I'm sorry. In terms of labor solidarity, excuse me. Why are we all throwing? Kill Sam if you have to kill somebody. Why are we throwing each other under the bus? That we're not practicing solidarity there at all. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. You're calling from an 832 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
This is Shane Thomas from Garland, Texas.
Hey, what's going on?
I'm pretty good. I just wanted to call in. This is my first time calling into the show.
Thanks.
That the interview that Sam did earlier.
Yeah.
It pretty much exemplifies why I'm a member.
Cool.
I've been a member for a few years, and it's been brilliant work that all of you have done.
Oh, thank you so much. Are you still there?
Huh?
You're cracking up quite a bit. I think you're back now. Go ahead, please.
I just wanted to close by saying that Jamie is a brilliant addition to the team.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Okay. Going to keep being a member and keep advertising you guys on my website.
Much appreciated.
Oh, what is your website?
What is your website?
You cut out for a minute in the middle.
My website is Harshlight.
Harshlight?
Harshlight.org.
Harshlight.org.
The name of the website comes from the notion that the truth can only be revealed in the harsh light of day.
Mm. And sunlight's the best disinfected.
It's primarily an entertainment-based website.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Please, call in more.
You got this great work. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Take care, man. You're calling from a 917 area code. Who are you?
Okay. Hi, this is Billy from Boston.
Hey, what's going on?
Hi, Michael, Matt, and Jamie. I'm just calling to ask a simple question. Try to be as succinct as possible. Do you think the wall at this point and the price point for the wall being $20 billion is like a fait accompli? And
like in terms of it's definitely going to happen? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, basically, and that's going to be a DACA with the wall. At least that's just like a.
I'm scared about DACA. I think there definitely is going to be money that they put towards something that they're going to call a wall. There's no question about that. I'm very scared about DACA, and I think that.
But what do you think about about Sumer's stance right now? Whether you want to go say it's a strategy.
That he's not gonna give money to the wall.
Yeah.
In the same way that I don't believe Mitch McConnell when he gives a verbal assurance to Democrats, I don't believe Chuck Schumer when he makes a threat, and I think that that's part of the problem right now. So, I still think that it's the basic premise. If you did a bill that was protect dreamers in exchange for a big, stupid, in fact, actually public works project, ironically, that would employ a few people, I would make that deal. And I no doubt that there is going to be something that they call a wall and that Trump is going to be able to get a win on that's going to go forward. I don't see how that doesn't happen.
How much would you pay for DACA in the form of the wall?
I'd pay 20. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, money is
matter. Irrelevant to me, yeah.
I feel like, why don't we just say Trump says $20 billion, multiply that by a factor of 10 and build a fucking $200 billion wall and let everybody see how much money we're wasting, So, anyway,
I appreciate the call, man.
Take my answer offline.
Thank
you.
All right,
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I mean, it's perverse topic, but I mean, put fiber optic in it and make it use union labor, and then fine, who cares how expensive
it's definitely
it
not going to be made use union labor.
Okay, yeah, fair.
Man.
Cross that out.
Yeah. I was talking with Willie Deagle. He's got some guys that could build a wall.
Some servants. These wall builders don't want to be servants anymore.
Nobody wants to be servants anymore.
I think the pyramids were built.
Yeah. Those are the last Africans I liked.
Get Brent Carson in here.
Yeah. The servants built it for Graham. All right, Ben, you can leave. You know, Ben Carson said that the drug war disproportionately affects black communities, and he also said recently that not everything Trump says necessarily reflects his opinion. So he's been really off the reservation recently. I'm ready for this. We're gonna work on me and Vanessa AB. We're talking about working on the covert revolutionary Ben Carson script.
I'm wilding out.
Dipset. All right.
HUD homies.
Out. I got this. You know, obviously, I think that, in my opinion, Alex Jones is a huckster of the highest order. I don't trust anything he says. And I think his show is essentially very highly entertaining, very well done fascist demagoguery. But it looks like the guy got a document that's real. And I guess I know it's real because in this case, at least,
printed out.
It's printed out. And he certainly, every time he gets documents, he definitely has the camera pan in on it. And he gets really livid if that sad British guy questions.
When are we going to have the overhead camera for documents?
Well, I don't want it because I don't think that we really have the document levels that Alex Jones has, frankly.
That's true.
Okay, I don't want, So here's Alex, though, getting some pretty powerful news. He apparently received a classified memo from Representative that was appended by Representative Devin Nunes.
I got to go off air because William Binney, former technical head of the National Security Agency, the main technical advisor, obviously, on the big film Snowden, who's advised the president and the CIA director Pompeo. He's now advising the president. He's going to be joining us next hour. He just said, hey, here, why don't you just have the actual memo they're talking about? Now, there's another memo they're writing about this memo, but here it is, just sent to us. I've got to go off air. This is the classified memo right here. I mean, I told you I have sources and that I'd reverse engineered it, but I guess the decision's been made by
even he's surprised.
Yeah, he's like, wait a second, I actually got a memo? What?
Document cam, please. And it's a lot more is coming up after the break. Okay, this is happening right now. Can we do a document cam shot, please? Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. The first look. You want to look at it? Got the whole thing. In fact, the rest of it's coming out of the printer, guys. Will you bring it to me, please? The one by my office in the hall. Here it is. This is why I'm having trouble conducting the show here, the broadcast. United States Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, Washington, D.C., April 26, 2017. Leanne Flynn Hall, clerk of the court.
Just reading things.
And it is
that's his classic
not
technique.
very redacted either. And it's classified, top secret. And then you want it, you got it. Tomorrow's news today. This is what Congress has got. But they've got an unredacted one, except for some code names. They've got one even less redacted than this. But this is nowhere in the press, by the way. I mean, I knew this was coming in earlier, and I was dealing with it, trying to conduct the broadcast while I knew all this was going on. And now I'm trying to go over all this. But here it is. Let's just get a document cam shot on this right now so I can send this out live. People can then stop it and rewind it, and the press and people can look at it and go back over it. There's page 1. That's a good shot right there. There's page 2.
That's a good shot.
Page 3. Would normally do this on air, but obviously this is important. Infowars.com/show if you want to see this. This is all how they did it to Trump, how they tracked it, all the spying. Good God.
This is see how I have a TV show concept where James Risen does this? Where he's like, good God. Cam document cam, please. Now, Matt, I know you have some additional information on this in front of you, but I just want to ask a question. Now, I don't know. I am not James Risen, obviously, so I don't have deep expertise in the intelligence food chain. But it seems to me that as a news consumer, a tip-off would be, and I'm sure there's different levels of classification, there's different parts of a process, no doubt. But if something was leaked as raw data to me, wouldn't it pretty likely that most of it would not be blacked out and redacted because I'm actually getting an unclassified raw intel?
Yeah, generally. I mean, they kind of redact heavy in the classification. They classify things just to cover themselves.
Sure,
but, you know, yeah.
I'm sure. You code names and so on. But I
understand why you're skeptical.
I'm a little skeptical of Alex's enthusiasm here. And I'm kind of touched by it because it totally seems to me like, oh, my God, usually I'm totally bullshitting. But this is actually like a thing. Can we look at it?
Yeah.
Pages. Page 2, page 1, page 3. Matt, unfortunately, are we going to do a little vintage Jon Stewart Daily Show action right now and be like, well, actually.
Yeah, actually, Jones went off air to scour the document, despite the fact that many users on Twitter quickly pointed out that what Jones had received was actually an unclassified FISA court document and not the rumored secret memo.
Did you also notice how top secret is written in the strike-through font?
Oh, no, I did not.
Maybe he thought that someone crossed it out, so doesn't work
cryptography.
It's crossed out. It's moot.
Or not.
Tomorrow's news today.
Tomorrow's news today.
Just to wrap up the point on the actual Nunes memo, it's BS written by Devin Nunes that the Republicans want to act like the Democrats are suppressing, but it's just a false story. Dave Rubin.
Bottom of the barrel, folks. We're getting there.
We're getting there. Devin Nunes is definitely like that barrel tip. And let's plunge further into the barrel. Ron Johnson, trust fund baby, ultra right wing dummy. This term, this whole idea of the deep state, it's like an actual real concept, and it's become completely out of control in the hands of the modern Republican Party. Here he is with Brett Baer, and he has pretty extraordinary claims about the FBI. I am quite convinced that none of these people ever had any concerns about any actual things that the FBI has ever done, whether it's, invading the privacy of environmental activists, whether it's COINTELPRO and the terrorizing the civil rights movement, whether it's even just stuff that isn't even publicly controversial. Like everybody loves James Comey, apparently. He's a big, he's got his Reinhold Niebuhr quotes. This guy built his career essentially on going to like mentally limited young men of Muslim backgrounds and being like, hey, you want to blow up a building? They're like, yeah, sure I do. And then arresting them and then saying that they were doing major indents on terrorism. Okay, so the FBI is a very checkered organization, and it's amazing to see all of a sudden these people care about it, but of course only from the filter of their bizarre conspiracy theory universe.
That secret society, we have an informant that's talking about a group that were holding secret meetings off-site. There's so much smoke here. There's so much suspicion.
Let's stop there. A secret society, secret meetings off-site of the Justice Department.
Correct.
And you have an informant saying that?
Yes.
Is there anything more about that?
No, we have to dig into it.
Hillary, we are ready to commence with Operation Q.
That's
when we activate the secret FBI side organization, and we will be back to power in 2019 like we originally planned. You think people actually thought we were genuinely stupid enough not to campaign in Wisconsin? These fools.
The way that that secret society, okay, today we're pushing the secret society. We don't need really anything. We just need to get that phrase out there because we know it's really going to catch on with our base, is very kind of scary propagandistic tactics, like classical. We need to just get that out there and get people repeating that. It doesn't matter if I have no details about it.
Fox is still like the engine, but I mean it's definitely like it's the Trump Jones Breitbart axis is where all this stuff turns on now.
Don't forget Sinclair
and all of these people whose their rise in terms of propaganda. I mean, Johnson's actually interesting because he's in the middle. He's in the Tea Party era. So, Bush era Republicans was all martial, lie about intelligence, worship the flag, militarism, all of that, and have a authoritarian, obsequious relationship with these institutions. Even if sure, Cheney bullied people about intelligence or whatever, but fundamentally they were aligned and pretty synchronized in terms of their sort of how they elevated institutions. And then in the kind of middle you have this Tea Party thing with all the Obama conspiracy theories, and a guy like Johnson he rides that wave of like rich guy Republican militarist with nothing really on his mind besides giving himself tax cuts. But he's one of these guys, I'm sure he believed his own fantasy life about Obama. I mean, Ron Johnson's one of the genuine articles, like a Sarah Palin. He actually is as dumb as that. So I agree with you that there's that cynicism and authoritarianism, but I think Ron Johnson does think.
Oh, he's a vessel for it.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever's coming up with him and sending him out there repeating is really,
Yeah, I agree with that. All right.
Right-wing and bitter, clinging, proud clingers.
Jesus.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Bring her back.
Do we really? Do you honestly you have the bandwidth to deal with her too on top of everything else?
Yo, that shit is fire.
No, it's not. It's not even like irony fire. She was, I mean, I don't know. Sarah Palin,
I think she really could have a second career as a terrible white rapper. If I didn't know better, I would think I was listening to Iggy Azalea.
You gonna really put me in a position of defending Iggy Azalea? I mean, come on, Jesus Christ! Doesn't she already have a first career as a terrible white rapper? Like, I think that's like essentially what she does.
That is a fair point. Well, it's time to make it. It's time to make it formal. It's time to make some money off of it, Sarah.
Oh, she made. I don't even know where she is now, though. She's totally off the radar. You're calling from a 631 area code. What were you about to? What was in your mind? Was it Iggy Azalea? Okay. Yeah, no, give me some Iggy Azalea. I don't mind. She's fine. You're calling from a 631 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's the fucking steak doctor. I'm exploiting over here. That's all I got. It's Tim from New Paltz. What's going on, guys?
Hey, what's going on, Tim?
Nothing much. I was going to call to make fun of Brian Kilmeade because he talks about football the way that I talk about football, which is somebody who has no fucking clue how it's played or anything about it at all. So
yeah, but you know what's awesome is that I bet he watches it all the time. That's what makes it so much better.
I don't think he really understands the game at all.
I agree.
I don't understand it at all, and either way, he never played it. He was born with penny loafers from the womb. Just doesn't seem like the type.
Oh, no. I'm saying I think he watches it, and he's obsessed by it, and he still absolutely can't explain it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, you're probably right. Or he watches it to get mad at the players.
Right.
Just all about the aggrievement. I called, but I really want to talk real quick about the steak doctor guy. Unironically, actually is the perfect out in the open example of the worst kind of people who will be benefiting, who are going to get hurt by helping workers. And I mean, I worked in restaurants all through high school and college, and busboy, waiter, whatever. And even when you have a good boss, it fucking sucks. It's incredibly hard. You don't make any money. Especially if you worked like I did, like in diners, you don't make shit, and you're constantly on your feet.
Yep.
It's like listening to that guy talk just fills me with this absolute sense of rage. And I don't even work in that industry anymore. I already feel like the Soviet national anthem playing in the back of my head.
I think it should fill anybody who's ever done any work of any type. I mean, I think of I didn't do restaurant work, but I did moving and yard stuff, and none of it landscape. I mean, actually, the best case scenario is somebody pays you cash under the table for that kind of work, and there's a lot more sort of flexibility.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
There's way more flexibility, but I mean, yeah, it's just obscene, and the fact that you have generations of people who, he's genuinely convinced himself that he's a victim of having to do the less than bare minimum for his people it's disgusting, of course.
Yeah, I mean, is there a more succinct example of a person with hilarious amount of privilege who could walk out of prison after defrauding people after 6 months, and he's immediately bitching that, I have to follow a law again. This is horrible. No, fuck you.
All I can say, if I ever go there, I'm going to pay in cash. Yeah.
I'm gonna give the money to my waiter, and then I'm gonna dine and dash.
Dude, we literally were planning that this morning. We were planning the
Yeah,
here's a
that's good.
$200 tip that we've pulled together, and peace. That's it.
Yeah, it's good. That's good practice right there.
Yeah.
Just pay the waiters.
That's
Maybe
right.
the kitchen staff. Get the fuck out.
Yeah, as long as that guy has money to get his tips frosted and buy terrible shirts by Wyatt Coke, I think the minimum wage is too low.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Isn't that the logic that they use for poor people, though? It's like, oh, they have refrigerators and TVs. They don't need any fucking welfare money. If you can get your tips frosted, you don't deserve to complain about minimum wage increases. Just take it out of your hair budget.
I think business success should not be a hammock.
They'll never grow because they're not challenging themselves.
Dude, I see him talking a lot of stuff to himself in the mirror every morning, but I don't see his TV appearances improving. I don't see.
I know.
I don't
never
see
gotten any
growth.
better.
He should have He should have a mandated life coach and have to pay his people $40 an hour, just as a start.
It's good shit.
That's my
right,
moderate
thanks so much,
offer. All right, thanks, man. Let's see. Let me just note this quickly, and there's not going to be many. Is there any more sound? All right. So last night, over 1 million people were watching the Bernie Sanders town hall on healthcare. He had panels of people, including people from Norway and Canada, to explain their systems, all of which obviously work far better and deliver better outcomes by every metric than our system. And he also talked with people navigating with and dealing with our sclerotic, dysfunctional, abusive, and unjust healthcare system as well. It was a very successful event. Sanders Town Hall Medicare for All, and he live streamed it. We went to it some during my show last night on the Majority Report channel. The Young Turks carried it live. I believe Attention carried it live, and a couple of other online outlets. He was very happy to bypass the mainstream media and go directly to the people. As he said at the beginning, it's a discussion you're not likely to see on the mainstream news. This event will not be interrupted by commercials for the drug companies. And that's actually a good sort of synthesized message there of sort of, talking again about media monopolies and corporate advertising and how it undermines, journalism and actual for real analysis about things like healthcare. So, great event. And another look, he's the only one really in the game doing this. I don't know, but the evidence is just sort of endless. He ran that campaign. I wish he ran to run, but he ran to build a profile and get visibility and have a completely different role in American politics. And he succeeded completely in that regard. And he's using it very effectively. So kudos. You are calling from a 215 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Michael. How are you?
Mindy. Hi. I am great. How are you?
How are you?
Good. I'm great. How are you doing?
I just wanted to tell you that I went to the Women's March on Saturday with my daughter in Philadelphia.
Awesome.
And there was they didn't get the final estimate yet, but because they're still counting. I don't know why. But there was at least 50,000 people on the Parkway in Philadelphia.
Wow.
I mean, it was incredible. My daughter lives on the Parkway, and we kept looking out the window to find out what time to go, because to walk out. We got at about 10:30. The crowd was so thick that we joined the crowd, and we walked up to the art museum. It was incredible. We overtook Whole Foods. We kicked all the men out of the men's bathroom. The women were nuts. We were very orderly, but the thing that is really interesting. No, we were orderly. We were calm and orderly, but it was definitely a woman's day for some reason.
It was a women's march.
The thing that was really incredible is when you were there, all the women were talking. I mean, there was a lot of men too, but primarily I would say it was probably 70-30 with women to men, a lot of dogs. But there were a lot of women with their daughters and their granddaughters, and 65-year-old women and 70-year-old women, and there were women with strollers. There were women in wheelchairs. It was
Wow.
just incredible.
That's
but
awesome.
The best part about the whole thing is that the women that were there, as you were talking to them, they weren't real political people.
Mhm.
They just hate Trump.
Mm.
Like they weren't political. They were like not us. I mean, not. I don't mean not us, but they weren't educated politically. They were
Right.
just anti-Trump,
Right.
which was incredible. And do you know what I'm saying? It was just
Totally. That's the part that kind of concerns me. Is I would like to think that some of this energy and this amazing human outpouring could get turned into something beyond just, Trump, right? Because I do think that Trump is, he's a symptom of much bigger problems. But look, I mean, I'm not so into that, but I think that's amazing that people were out, and I think it's great.
No, but they're not just not anti-Trump. They're just anti what's going on in the country.
Right.
Like they're anti. It's not that they just hate Trump. That's not their only.
Oh, I
message.
misunderstood you. I thought I totally misheard you. My bad. No, I think that's great. Yeah.
Okay. They're not anti-Trump. I mean, they're anti-Trump, but they're anti-Republican. They're anti-women. Like
Right,
they know
right.
that the Republicans are anti-women rights and anti-abortion, and they were just incredibly uninformed, but knew the message. Like that, they were very upset. Like they didn't know who the politicians were, but they knew it was wrong. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's awesome.
They knew it was wrong, and they
Right.
knew everything was wrong.
Right.
About what was going on. And these are people that probably, were Republicans or are Republicans and voted Republican. And I also see the same thing happening on Twitter. I love Twitter, and I'm not going to give you my Twitter handle because I knew you always say
Go
I
for
like
it.
to give myself
Do
shout-outs.
it. Do it.
No. Okay, Mindy 9. But on Twitter, I'm finding that the people that are following me now used to be all political people, and now they're just like social workers and psychiatrists and just like, just teachers that have no political, no reason. They're just on Twitter. And now they're becoming politically on Twitter.
Awesome.
Like I'm finding that it's turning. I'm seeing a turn. Like I went from, I just picked up 2,000 followers of crazy, not political people that are getting involved.
That's awesome, Mindy.
Do you think that they're learning?
You go, Mindy.
Do you think that they're learning and progressing in their politics and knowledge?
Wait, yeah, Jamie, I do. I think we're going to, if we can keep this momentum up, I think we're going to have a gigantic blue wave. I mean, people are the women next to me didn't even know who our senators were, really. Like, she was getting the names wrong. But they know something's wrong in the air. They just know something's wrong in the air, and it's making them crazy. And I heard a lot of this, and then I'll let you go because I'm long-winded, but I heard a lot of this. I don't want my grandchildren to grow up in this. I don't want my kids to grow up in this. I don't want my grandchildren don't understand. The kids don't understand. Like, they need to have a better life. They have to be able to buy a house.
That's great.
So, are you finding that? Was anybody else telling you that?
I think that people are definitely much more activated, and I think some of it is getting to be a bigger picture than just, Trump's the main emergency, but I think you're right. I think people are engaging in a much broader way, and I think that, I do think 2018, I'm not going to, make a prediction about any specifics, but it looks good. There's going to be a lot of Democratic wins. What happened a couple months ago convinced me, with Virginia in particular, that to me was pretty striking evidence. And of course, I'm most excited about someone like Lee Carter winning a seat as a DSA person. Thanks so much, Mindy.
Right, and Mike, hold on, listen. Mike Byers,
Mike Byers is a fucking arrogant prick. Sorry.
I'll leave him alone.
No, I love Mike. That's John from San Antonio.
We just had Mayan today. Did you hear about our Mayan guy?
Our what?
Our Mayan guy.
Nope.
Pat Mayan.
Nope. What happened?
Pat Mahan. Look him up. He's
the
guy that said that one of his staffers was a soulmate. He's
the soulmate guy. Okay, yes, I have heard about him.
Soulmate guy. The soulmate guy. We're going to flip his seat. It might get good. Things might work out for us.
What's the name of that district? I love it. What district is that?
I don't know. It's PA. I don't.
Okay, we'll find it. We'll find it.
Look it up.
We'll look it up. Thank you, Mindy.
But I think it's turning. Goodbye.
I agree with you. Thank you.
I am not part of the left that looks down upon the marches as sort of normie, like makes fun of the
No,
pussy.
that's just, look,
this is an opportunity for people. Like
the whole point of left politics is mass appeal and wins. It's not to sit there and be like,
this is an opportunity.
cool.
Like when they, to anybody who like is just dipping into politics and comes here, for instance, you've come to the right place.
I agree completely.
I mean, on the one hand, we always need people to be learning and doing better. And, maybe they said or did something that was transphobic without meaning to, I think all the emphasis on vaginas and equating that with womanhood is problematic for trans women who want to be part of the movement. On the same token, these people's hearts are in the right place, and we need to be acting in good faith towards them and bring them into our coalition. Like there's a good article by Kianga Yamada-Taylor in The Guardian the other day called "Think the Women's March Wasn't Radical Enough? Do something about it." And I agree with that. If leftist irony bros can be nice to white working class people who voted for Trump, they can be nice to the pink pussy hat ladies as well.
I'm actually be nice to everybody until you're not.
And bring them into the coalition, more importantly. This is about power.
Well, you bring things, and you do that by actually being appealing and nice.
And you don't have to like them necessarily, but we got to work together if we want to take power.
Yeah, don't worry. Right, exactly. You're calling from an 818 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Oh, this guy's over here. You ever work in a restaurant, Mike?
No, I said I worked on a landscaping crews and moving.
Not really servicing.
Yeah,
not really a servant.
I was never a servant.
Listen.
I got yes.
You ain't never been a servant. Well, you can't talk like you're some kind of authority, all right? What, you some kind of authority? Huh?
Okay, yeah.
Listen,
All right.
I go out every day. I
Right.
look in the mirror and say, "Hey, you know who's the best? You're the best. You know who's the best? You're the best. You know who's the man? I'm the man."
I do that every day too.
All right,
though.
Mike?
Yeah.
You don't tell me my business. I will tell you yours.
Okay. The steak doctor.
I can't keep this, though. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate it. Steak doctor with a legit perspective. None of us here have run a steakhouse. Totally fair point. And I've also never harassed anybody at a White Castle either. So there's a lot of stuff that I need to catch up with.
Look, if you never own a steakhouse or manage the Denny's, you're not qualified to speak on any of it.
Oh my God, I remember the Denny's thing. That was such a classic. Have you ever managed a Denny's?
Stop silencing his lived experience.
That was great. I'm all about silence. I love silencing lived experience with the cold reality of my opinion being more important to me.
No, just real quick, this Chuck Schumer thing. I mean, it's not something that it's like, it's like asking the drunk down the street if you to watch your kids. I mean, it's like it's
yeah,
it's
sure. I'll watch your
Mitch
kids.
McConnell.
Don't worry, I got it. No problem. Sure.
Yeah, you're gonna trust Mitch
kid burned the
on
apartment
anything?
down,
I mean, that's
barely
great.
survived. Sorry. Actually, to be more honest, sorry, not sorry. Anyways, also ruined your cooking equipment that you lent my wife. So, and I don't care. Go fuck yourself. All right, brother. Thanks for the call.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Take it easy. All right. Sorry, folks. I have time for just one more call and then a few IMs, and then we are out of here. You're calling from a 303 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Mike. This is Lee. I'm calling from Ohio.
Hey, what's... Ooh,
and I'm calling... I just wanted to vent.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
I have been talking to family members of mine who closet voted for Trump. You know they did. I mean, I'm an atheist in a Christian family,
right?
And they go to a Christian, like they go to church. They're so devout in their faith, and to see what's happening with these deported families and to just be able to write it off. I cannot even. I feel like Judy Gold. Like I want to scream.
I get it. It's disgusting.
I don't even understand how they can. I mean, their Jesus.
Yeah.
Their Jesus was not like that. Like everything that they would, claim to believe, they don't follow. I can't even. It just. Yeah, I'm having a Judy Gold moment lately.
Well, you could swear more if you want to deepen your vent, buddy. The floor is yours for about another. You got a minute.
So yeah, so what I've been thinking about is how you know, because I grew up in the church. I know it really well. I was like in leadership at the church and everything. And I remember there were parts of the Bible that were talking about the poor and the strangers and all of that. And that's what we've always stood for. And it even says that they are going to be guilty of, I mean, they'll go to hell. Like that Jesus would say, I never knew you. I this is who you are.
I didn't even know you.
And that's how it is.
But this is a good example.
Just like Jesus says, I never knew you.
This is a good example of why the fundamentalist reading Sam Harris gives to Islam is just complete bullshit, because people's attitudes are really like more influenced by this authorities in their social circle than the actual like text of the book.
100%. I mean, that's like always the point, right? And I think that I think that there are, you know, spiritual experiences, there's validity in some of these things, but like the irony of like all of the nonsense with Sam Harris and why it is relevant to what you're saying is like an actual material reading of this stuff is not to like do some silly pseudo MRI or whatever experiment and try to make some claim about brain activity when you read certain passages or some silliness. It's to say, what's the political, economic, and power context that a religion is contextualized in? And that's why you can have your family members who are practicing a, you know, immoral, disgusting Christianity that looks the other way. And it's also why Christianity can be a vehicle for like dismantling apartheid, as in the case of like Desmond Tutu in South Africa, just as Islam can be grotesque, vicious terrorism, and it can also be like a, you know, progressive, like Sufi, in fact, even potentially fighter in parts of Africa, fighting fundamentalists. So yeah, I mean, it's not about their book for them. I mean, I'm sure it is overtly, but it's their
they
politics.
think it is because they think God wrote it, but they're wrong about that.
Yeah, even their interpretation of it is contextualized by things that they have no awareness of.
Can I ask?
They certainly wouldn't agree with Martin Luther King Jr.'s interpretation of the scripture.
Well, can I ask what socioeconomic class these folks are in?
Middle upper class. White, middle upper class.
Yeah, that's a huge factor as well.
Just where we like them.
Just where we like them. All right, thanks for the call, brother. I got to run.
Thanks. All right.
Yep. All right. Classless creative. Breaking news. USA gymnastics doctor Larry Nassar was sentenced to 175 years in prison. Yeah, I mean, that's just a horrifying story. You had something on that, Brian?
It's 40 to 175 years, just for our nerds out there.
So your town is next. Yesterday, Jamie mentioned being harassed by Gavin McGinnis. She's certainly not alone. I produce a politics and activism podcast called Too Spicy, and one of those also had a fucked up run-in with Gavin. I'm sorry, I can't read all of it. I'll read the next graph, but I can't read all of it because we have a lot of time. But it's Too Spicy, and it's the number, not spelled out. So we should, you know, check out the podcast. Her name is Heather Maria Skull. Recently, she hosted the Confronting White Womanhood panel at the Women's Convention. If you can get a sense, of her far left steez. In 2015, Gavin approached her on the street, asked her to be in his web show. She barely knew who he was beyond Guy from Vice, so she didn't see the trap. Okay, right. He put a camera on her and he yelled about being raped and pedophile rings and all this other hysterical claptrap. He'd given no indication that he was going to quote-unquote debate her, let alone with insinuations of being a quote-unquote race traitor. If that wasn't awful enough, his fans then harassed her for ages. Even now, Proud Babies still occasionally tweet hate speech at her. Yeah, it's disgusting.
Your reign of terror is over, dude. We fucking won.
Yeah, he's pretty.
Sorry. The cultural Marxists have prevailed.
Cultural Marxists. Hashtag. So Facebook just took down Telesaur English after they posted an article about Pompeo admitting that the CIA is behind the latest round of sanctions against Venezuela. They're also deleting activists of Kurdish activists who've been drawn to attention by Erdogan. This brutal assault on Afrin. Well, I have no doubt that they're going to be responsive to the demands of like an Erdogan government because they want to keep it up. And, you know, Turkey's a pretty big market. They're notorious for banning left-wing activists. Don't bat an eye at open white supremacy. Is that what improving connectivity is supposed to look like? Well, I think that A big part of the reason, though, is I say why white supremacists get leeway on these platforms, because they drive a lot of traffic, and that's really the ultimate sort of bottom line.
Yeah, look at what militia groups do for membership on those things.
Exactly. Also, rest in peace, Ursula K. Le Guin.
Jamie favorite.
Oh, she passed away?
Yeah, very sad.
How old is she?
She was super old. I think like 90
right.
years old. Still very sad, but very happy that we got as much amazing work from her as we did, and I'm excited to read the rest of her books.
Awesome. All right, guys, I need to pick the final IM here. We have to run. Let's see. This was a bad one, but I will address this later. I heard some shade thrown Jordan Peterson's way from you guys. I'm curious if the majority report at TMBS can expand. If so, why don't you like him? I think he's a very complicated and interesting figure, and I think that he has a lane for himself because of some weaknesses on our side. But I think ultimately he's smuggling a lot of real nonsense into the discourse, basically. I do impressions of him, which you could check out on TMBS, but there might be some deeper conversations with him. He's actually doing a debate on Zero Books.
Even if it's way over.
What's that? Oh. Okay, please.
They're not allowed to speak out against.
I think it's their unconscious wish for brutal male domination.
Okay, well,
that's Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll unpack. He's going to be on Zero Books, which is a great podcast, and I think it'll be really interesting to see when he's actually confronted by somebody with the command of the material that he's constantly pontificating about and hyperventilating about. We will be back tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light's shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive